not going to take the time to read the post about 13 nootropics to unlock your true brain, here's what you need to know. I wrote this post after almost 20 years of daily use of nootropics or smart drugs. I've tried just about every one of them out there. I've looked into the research. I've met people who wrote the original books on smart drugs and learned from them. And this is one of the things that has saved my relationships. It has saved my career, and it helped me to get to the level of performance where I am now. I'm on smart drugs right now as I record this. These things can help you. They can make you live longer, and they can also mess you up. Here's what you need to know. According to one report, up to 25% of students at leading UK universities are taking the prescription smart drug modafinil. And California tech startup employees are trying all kinds of stuff, including Adderall, which has been around for a long time. That's prescription methamphetamine, something I don't even count as a smart drug. It's kind of annoying that these harsh stimulants are counted in the smart drug category. Stimulants are not classically smart drugs unless they also increase performance, and there's a lot of harm in those. And in Silicon Valley, microdosing of LSD has really taken off, where people use very small doses that don't cause hallucination in order to open creativity and push their brains into higher gear. It also increases suggestibility, which could be a double-edged sword there. Let's go through these 13 categories so you can learn what you need to know. The first one, so-called arousal-promoting non-stimulants, would be modafinil, known as Provigil, armodafinil, known as Nuvigil and much more expensive, and adrafinil, an older form that people still can get, but one that I don't necessarily recommend because it's rough on the liver. The normally prescribed dose for modafinil is between 50 and 200 milligrams taken in the morning unless you want to be awake all night. Technically, you can take it and then go to sleep. I just don't recommend it because you won't want to sleep. It's not a stimulant, but it definitely helps you pay attention. The description from a lot of people who've tried it is it makes you feel more like yourself. You want to count cards, you can do it better. You want to write, you can do it better. A lot of my writing has been done on modafinil. I went off daily modafinil. I was on it almost every day for 8 years. About 3.5 years ago, because I found out with Bulletproof Coffee, with the lifestyle, with avoiding all these things that make me weak and all the training of my brain, the difference in my performance on and off of it is almost impossible to measure. It's like I'm on it all the time, even though I'm not on it, which is awesome. So don't start with these drugs. These are emergency things where I gotta bring it today, or I'm really not doing well and I need to get my health built up and I have to be able to keep paying for it. Like, these are big guns. It's okay to use the big guns, just don't use them all the time unless you have to, in which case, hey, you lived your life. Next up, armodafinil. This is Nuvigil. This stuff is more powerful than Provigil. It's 100 to 200 milligrams taken in the morning. And it's a lot more expensive, but if your insurance company's paying, hey, stick it to them. Finally, there's adrafinil, which is about 300 milligrams taken in the morning, but it's much harder on the liver. All of these drugs have a risk of about 5 in a million of causing an autoimmune skin condition, which can be life-threatening. In the blog posts on the Bulletproof website, I actually tell you which genes to test for. This is the same thing that ibuprofen and many other drugs do. It's an extremely low possibility, but it does happen to people. So this is one of the risks of these drugs. They also could just make you act like a total jerk, because if you're already a total jerk, being more of a total jerk isn't necessarily a good thing. So be nice, all right? Next up, one of my favorite classes of smart drugs, racetams. There's a whole bunch of them, the most famous of which is called piracetam. And the ones that I prefer are phenylpiracetam, and you can do, well, in one study, 400 milligrams. I only take 100 usually, but they did 400 milligrams taken daily for a year. It significantly improved brain function and cognition in people recovering from a stroke. So this was a big dose over a long period of time with people with damaged brains, so that doesn't mean it's going to work for you unless you've had a stroke. Even then, it might not work for you. Phenylpiracetam taken 200 milligrams, which is a more normal dose, for 30 days, improved neurological function by 7% in people with brain damage and by 12% in people with epilepsy. Well, you probably don't have either of those. It does, in rats, however, improve memory and it counters depression. It's the only racetam that's antidepressant-like. And a single small study of piracetam, not aniracetam, in healthy adults found that it improved verbal learning significantly. I take aniracetam every single day. It's the only fat-soluble racetam. I take it with my Bulletproof coffee. And what it does is it increases your memory I/O, your ability to get things in and out of your memory. That's pretty cool, right? Racetams also are neuroprotective, which is really, really helpful. In other words, if there is a loss of oxygen in your brain, fewer cells die. The side effects of the common racetams are an amplification of caffeine. That would be tragic. The next smart drug that is terribly terribly controversial and actually very famous because it's one of the oldest smart drugs ever, is nicotine. Nicotine has a direct effect on the mitochondrial energy in your body, and just about anything that increases mitochondrial function is going to make your brain work better because you've got the most mitochondria up here. Smoking's bad for you. Smoking's bad for your brain. Smoking is the opposite of a smart drug. Tiny doses of nicotine administered either as a spray or a sublingual lozenge without NutraSweet in it can and will act as a smart drug. If you don't believe me, drink your Bulletproof coffee and take a very small 1 milligram dose of nicotine and check out what you get done that day. Nicotine also helps you burn fat, and at these doses, it's actually good for the brain. You have nicotinic acid receptors. Don't get addicted to it. Don't take it many times a day. Don't take it every single day, but it really belongs in your stack of smart drugs, especially for a day when you're just really dragging and you need to be at your top level performance. You can turn around with nicotine even if you have the worst jet lag ever. Next up, amphetamine. I put it here because it's commonly, lately anyway, considered to be a smart drug. It's not, it's a dumb drug. But in healthy adults, it improves attention, focus, motivation to work, as long as that work is mind-numbing, and improves short-term memory through changing dopamine and norepinephrine release in the prefrontal cortex. It's highly addictive. Adderall says right on it, D-methamphetamine salts. I got a prescription for it once. I would even take a quarter pill, and it makes you want to kill people. That's why much of the military has switched from Adderall, which they used to use, to modafinil, which doesn't have those side effects. I think modafinil is a gentler drug on the brain, and it's not a stimulant that keeps you from going to sleep. It's arousal promoting, but not arousal forcing. Next up, L-theanine. This is a major component of black and green tea, which promotes relaxation, alertness, and arousal. It works synergistically with caffeine. It's widely available. It's really cheap. And when you take it with coffee, it increases reaction time, memory, and mental endurance. Next up, Bacopa monnieri. This is an Ayurvedic herb. It's an adaptogen. It helps your body adapt to stress. It's something I really like, but almost every formula that uses Bacopa uses a lower dose than is physiologically useful. You want to be getting at least 750 milligrams and oftentimes much more. In studies, it improves memory in healthy adults and enhances attention and mood in people over 65. Next up, this is going to be bad. Acid, LSD. Look, people are using it. I'm not promoting that you use it. There is a great risk to using acid. Namely, it makes you hypersuggestible and you can have a bad trip, all those sorts of things. I'm not talking about using it in those ways. I'm talking about using about 5% of a normal dose that would make someone, take their clothes off at Burning Man, or maybe take their clothes off even more at Burning Man. But what I'm talking about there is a very, very small dose. And when you use that, it can act as a smart drug where you are able to focus better. You're able to come up with different words. You're able to solve problems, to do math in a different way. So I'm not promoting this. I'm saying that a lot of people are using it, and it's been very effective for them, the ones I've talked to. And I think that this deserves to be on any list of smart drugs. And therapeutically, it's been used at much higher doses with PTSD, anxiety, and depression. I'm not promoting misuse of this stuff. You can harm yourself. You can get stuck in some very bad places. But you should know that it is used this way, and that this is a chemical that affects your brain, not always negatively, but certainly can be negative. The next nootropic that I'm a fan of is called Unfair Advantage, and that's because I made this one, so it's my baby. It has two compounds and a unique delivery system. It has active PQQ, which is something that we pioneered, which is a new form of something called PQQ that doesn't get turned off by stomach acid. When you take the one manufacturer's version of PQQ that's available out there, it's a salt. PQQ promotes the growth of new mitochondria, and it helps the mitochondria that you have make energy more effectively. So when you can get that stuff into the body, you can expect that your brain, which has the most mitochondria, is going to feel really good. So active PQQ is combined in super tiny molecules with coenzyme Q10 so that they can be absorbed rather than inactivated in the stomach. That supplement's called Unfair Advantage. I actually take 4 of those a day because I like the idea of growing as many mitochondria as my body is fully capable of. It's like putting a bigger engine in your car, right? Next up, another one, Bulletproof Upgraded Aging Formula. This is a form of oxaloacetate, which is a neuroprotective agent that can help shield your brain from toxins. And in different studies, it can promote healthy levels of inflammation in the brain, which means low, right? And your brain needs something called glutamate to function, but when you have too much glutamate, i.e. MSG or traumatic brain injury, glutamate becomes toxic and starts to kill neurons. Oxaloacetate can help your brain maintain glutamate levels and deal with high levels of glutamate. This is pretty important, and I noticed a huge difference from upgraded aging formula. It helps with brain aging, but it also helps with brain performance, and it's one of my core stack that I use every single day. Next up, you can get something called forskolin, which is a common Ayurvedic herb. It increases something called cyclic adenosine monophosphate, which is a molecule essential to learning and memory formation. It's been taken for a long time for that kind of thing. You can also, if you want to, and a lot of people get a headache when they combine them, but I just take straight forskolin. It seems to work better for me. There's also weight loss effects from that. You can also take it with artichoke extract, which inhibits PDE4, which is an enzyme that breaks down cyclic AMP. So the strategy in a lot of these smart drugs is use something to increase the level and use something else to prevent the breakdown, so you can double the level. That's one strategy there. There's also something called choline force on the Bulletproof website. This uses a similar strategy. With choline force, what we do is we increase the level of acetylcholine by putting in acetylcholine precursors and then using natural herbs that help prevent the brain from breaking down acetylcholine. And you do that to increase your cognitive performance. So here's the deal. Before you try nootropics, start with the basics. Get rid of the things in your diet and the things in your life that are reducing cognitive performance. It's easier to set down a boat anchor you're carrying than it is to learn how to carry a bigger anchor. So drop the stuff that makes you weak, stop eating MSG, stop the sugar, stop the gluten, stop the other things that mess with your head, and you'll find your cognitive performance goes up a lot. Once you're there, start working with your nootropics and start with the natural ones before you go into the pharmaceutical range. And after you've gotten everything balanced out there, if you decide to use some of the even more out there ones, that's up to you, but be cautious and don't go to jail over your smart drugs. Have an awesome day and enjoy your newfound control over your own brain.